Thank you, Rabbi. I'm here to talk about the upcoming mayoral election, and I want to start off by talking about what happened in New York City and other cities in 2021. That's roughly 2 years before the 10/7 attack in southern Israel on October 7th, 2023. In 2021, for several weeks, there were skirmishes between Israel and Hamas. It was not a full-scale war, but there were attacks going in both directions. It's not considered a war, but just skirmishes. And this is the first time that we started to see things that were truly shocking. For instance, in Los Angeles, 10 cars pulled up in a Jewish neighborhood and went to a kosher sushi restaurant and attacked Jews. One person was brutally beaten. The cars then paraded around Los Angeles with the Palestinian flags. In London, same time, cars paraded around Hyde Park and Marble Arch with the following speakers on their megaphones: rape Jewish daughters, rape Jewish daughters. I speak to you if you're Jewish and you have daughters. I'm oftentimes shocked at how many Jews who have daughters do not spend their nights thinking about what might have happened if their daughters were in southern Israel. They're too busy doing something else instead of saying, my kid could have been at that rock concert at the Nova Festival, but very few people are doing this. In New York, again, in 2021, 2 years before 10/7, there were attacks against Jews in Times Square and in the Diamond District. In Times Square, a man was brutally beaten. He wasn't even at a rally. He just walked out of a subway stop, but he had a yarmulke on and he was brutally beaten. And a woman, wait for it, was set on fire. Her back was set on fire if she was Jews. This was all done by Muslims. They were all done by Islamists. This is what took place in 2021 before what happened in Israel in this most recent war. That was not prompted by a war. It was just an invitation. We have been seeing a shocking and appalling unrestricted attacks of violence against Western Jews for a number of years. Most American Jews are not tied into what's happened to their fellow Jews in Europe. But starting in 2007, Parisian Jews have been under assault by Muslims. European anti-Semitism in the recent era is all emanating from Islam and is perpetrated by Islam. And all throughout cities in major capitals in Europe, Stockholm, Madrid, Barcelona, Brussels, London, Paris, Berlin, every single one of those cities, Jews have been under assault for the last 10 years. Or in Amsterdam, you don't need me. You can look this up. It's just that many Jews in the United States have disconnected themselves from this. They don't know what's happened. Grandmothers being tossed from balconies in Paris. Another Jewish grandmother, a Holocaust survivor, was set on fire. Before that, it was said Allahu Akbar. European leaders, the same ones that have now recognized the Jewish state, they're scared. They have violent extremist Muslims living in their nations, and they're absolutely terrified. And Muslims believe that they have leverage over politicians, business people, university presidents, the media, and they do have leverage. You know what the leverage is called? Fear and violence. We will attack people. We will create our own no-go zones. We will have 150 Sharia courts. We will ignore the laws of these European cities, and we will impose our own laws in the spirit of Islam's interest in achieving power around the world. If you look at Western societies, you can see an enormous amount of buyer's remorse. They have had an Islamist problem for a number of years. Now, here we are in New York City, the largest city outside of Tel Aviv of Jews. And by the way, when I mentioned Paris, Paris has the largest percentage of Jews throughout Europe. So having a large percent of the Jews is not an inoculation. It's an invitation to attack Jews. It's not an inoculation. The fact that more Jews live in New York City than any other city other than Tel Aviv is striking. The fact that this is also the financial capital of the world. So you're seeing things that are evocative of something. The financial capital world, Mamdani is saying he's going to tax the rich. And now you have to ask yourself, will the largest percentage of Jews in the United States be safe with a man who cannot denounce globalize the intifada? What he's essentially said, and I think this has just not gotten enough attention. Globalize the intifada means I accept violence committed against Jews globally, not where there are settlers, not where there are Jews in Israel on Islamist land or Arab or Muslim land, but wherever they can be found. The potential mayor of the largest city of Jews outside of Tel Aviv is actually saying this should have been a no-brainer for him. He should have been able to say, of course I can't accept that. Of course I can't renounce that kind of language. I'm about to lead this city. I can't lead a city that has the largest percent of Jews in the United States and at the same time say that I support or would never denounce globalize the intifada, because it's essentially an invitation to attack Jews in my city. And this is what we've seen in European capitals. The difference here is that here you have a Muslim mayor. This is not a president or a prime minister. This is the mayor who's responsible for the welfare of all the people in his city. Now, we've seen throughout Europe, certainly in the UK, many cities now being led by Muslim mayors and city councils, and that especially throughout England. And that has a lot to do with the unrestrained violence against Jews, is that there's this simply leverage against the national government. And in terms of the local governments, they're just led by Muslims and Islamists who have no problem harming Jews. Now, let me just remind you that it was only a year ago that one Muslim city that has the largest percentage of Muslims in the United States, Dearborn, Michigan, is the first time the American flag was lit and we were starting to hear death to America, death to Israel, death to Jews. This was not seen in the United States. This is all very new, which is why I'm reminding you of what happened in 2021. And then we have another moment in Dearborn, Michigan, where we're starting to light flags and saying, we really reject American liberalism and representative democracy, and we're interested in something else. Let me tell you something that also just happened in Dearborn, Michigan. These are harbingers of what might happen in New York. The Muslim mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, at a city council meeting where most of the city council, I think the entire city council is Muslim, was listening to the concerns of the electorate. And a Christian minister, a cleric of some kind, spoke at the lectern, and he said, I am not comfortable using taxpayer funds to rename a city street in honor of a Hezbollah terrorist. This just took place 3 weeks ago. You can look this up. A Christian cleric said, I do not feel comfortable that we have named a street for taxpayer dollars for a Hezbollah terrorist. And he was told publicly by the mayor of Dearborn, I want you to know that you are not welcome in our city anymore. And if you leave our city, I will be the first one to throw a parade to celebrate that. This is America, ladies and gentlemen. Now, all I know is that Mamdani's smile and smirk seems to me like a con job. And because we know what he said about defunding the police, we know what he said about globalize the intifada. We know that he doesn't believe in the existence of a sovereign Jewish state. He said enough things that tells us how he feels. He, in all likelihood, to some certainty, is going to look the other way when there are crimes against Jews, just like we've seen this in major capitals around the world. This is not speculation. This is something that we've seen in Western capitals around the world, and there's no evidence that we will not see this here. Jews are responsible in so many ways for the cosmopolitan culture that is New York City. And if taxing the rich is going to force an erosion of the tax base because rich New Yorkers will leave, New York City may become uninhabitable for Jews. uh, French Jews, London Jews, Berlin Jews, Stockholm Jews are all making aliyah to Israel because those cities have become unlivable because of Islamist influences and influence political agenda in Islamist political agendas. I'm afraid that's where we're headed here in New York City. We're going to actually reach a point where Jews are going to say, I think I have to buy something in Israel because I can no longer live in this city. That's what the stakes are in this election. I'm not scaring you or exaggerating to you about anything that isn't already visible throughout Western Europe. This is not mere hyperbole or speculation. The problem is most New York City Jews and New York City residents have not followed what has happened throughout Western Europe. They have no idea. And if you didn't know it, I'm glad I'm telling it to you. And then maybe you should spend a few minutes online and say, oh my God, I did not know that at a Jewish day school in Toulouse in France, that a rabbi and students were killed by an Islamist. I didn't know that before the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists were killed, that Islamists attacked a kosher market in Paris. I didn't know that. You should know that, but many of you won't know that. And I think that this is something that you have to really ask yourself. If you're Jewish and you're voting for Mamdani, you're essentially ignoring the evidence throughout Western capitals, Australia, Canada, and throughout Europe that the situation, the perilous situation that has existed for Jews in those areas. And if you are a decent, law-abiding, liberal, religiously pluralistic, free speech-oriented American person believing in representative democracy, you should be very, very afraid, very worried, because what that speech, that comment given by the Dearborn, Michigan mayor, who said, I don't want you, Christian Leclerc, to live here because I want to be able to name a street for a terrorist. And if you leave, I will throw a parade to celebrate your departure. This is going to be possible in New York if Mamdani, his mentors, his family, his background, his parents, everything is pointing in one direction only: hate Jews and destroy the Jewish state. And keep this in mind. If you haven't voted in a New York City election in a while, now is your time to quickly register and show up at the precinct. Sorry to deliver bad news, but it's not original news. It's been out there. Think back to 2021. Jews attacked at Times Square, a woman set on fire, a man brutally attacked. And by the way, I just read 2 days ago, an Israeli lecturer was beaten on West 38th Street. He was followed outside a building and brutally attacked. I think he's in a hospital with some kind of brain injury. This is happening live. This is not a Hollywood movie. This is something that you can look up and see. The actions taken by Muslims. Anti-Semitism in the modern West now is not from the right. It's only from Islamists and Muslims, and it's been going on since at least 2007 in Europe. Thank you very much. Go vote for Cuomo or Sliwa, but please vote.